When you have ADHD, you have a fast thinking brain, like super fast. And that how also do you have a race car brain with bicycle brakes? That is a super fast thinking brain. So what are the disadvantages of having that kind of brain? What are the disadvantages of having a ADHD brain, the brain that thinks super fast? What are those disadvantages? And that's what I'm going to go over today. I'm going to talk about 5 different disadvantages of thinking fast. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is going to be that when you have this fast thinking brain, when you think fast, you take in information fast. And that means when you walk into an environment and scan your environment and see all the things in your environment, you might take in that information super fast. So that could be a disadvantage because you're trying to take in the environment at the same time you're trying to hear what this person is saying. You're trying to look and make sure that you're talking to this person or greeting this person. You're trying to do all these things. And yet, as you take in all this information at once, it's working memory. Now, working memory is going to be basically your RAM for your brain. And RAM memory in a computer is the memory that helps to process things. It's the memory that helps when you take in information, when you add something to your computer, that it lets you still keep doing things on your computer while it's installing that program. Now, if you have a computer and you run out of RAM, the computer just slows to a stop or it crashes. You might run out of this theoretical RAM. You might run out of the memory, the working memory at the time. You may get so many things you're trying to use in your working memory that you can not take in any more information until you get rid of some information. I'm not saying get rid of it out of your brain. What I am saying is you have to offload it somewhere. You need a pen, a piece of paper, and that's a way that you can offload it as you write something down. Then now you're not trying to hold it in your mind. Maybe it's just something you see that you're interested in. And maybe you hear something or see something that you're not interested in, but you're trying to look at the thing you're interested in. You're not paying attention to the other things, right? And then maybe you see something else or hear something else and you're still trying to take that information in. So now you're concentrating or trying to concentrate on one thing and taking a lot of information at the same time. And so this can be a definite disadvantage when you think this fast. So when you have ADHD, you have to learn, or part of it is learning to kind of slow down and be able to pay attention to one thing or focus better. I know it's hard to focus when you have ADHD. I shouldn't have said focus better, but what I mean by that is develop some skills, some workarounds to help you focus, to help you with this disadvantage of taking in too much information, to offload the information, to put it somewhere else, pen, piece of paper, or somewhere else so you can take in more information. Another disadvantage would be that you switch interest quickly. Now, I'm not talking about the 1 week to the 5 week to the 2 week interest, right? You change interest that way. I am talking about when you are in a place, you walk in, you see something to one side, you see something in front of you, you see something to the other side, and you are trying to figure out which one is more interesting. And then you might decide one is more interesting. But once you get to that thing, you say, not as interesting as I thought. And so you're trying to figure out what thing is most interesting. And it can be good because you will experience a lot of things. You'll be able to go and visit a lot of things or whatever. Somebody may be trying to get your attention and your attention is on 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different things. Or you could be in a conversation with somebody and say, this thing and this thing and this thing is more interesting than my conversation. Then you look at those things or trying to figure out, okay, how can I get over there to see this more interesting thing? And then somebody in the conversation says, hey, what do you think about this? And you are completely lost because you've been looking and thinking about going to see that interesting thing. And you might have been interested in this conversation before, but that is completely gone. You have no more interest in that conversation. Not really a good thing when you're in conversations with people or you need to pay attention to something that you want to pay attention to. And you just get distracted all over the place because you have all these different things that you find interesting. Another disadvantage of a fast thinking mind is going to be that you deliver information too quickly. Now, in some cases, if you are given the right information and you deliver it quickly, then it can be an advantage. But in this case, I'm talking about oversharing, and that can be a definite disadvantage because someone will be in a conversation with you and they'll ask you something and you know a lot of information about that thing. Like you know so much information about that one thing they asked. Now they're only wanting one answer from you, like one part of that, but you give them everything that you know, everything that you could think of, everything that is in your mind right now. Say you are outside and you're working on a car and this person said, hey, how do you start the car? And then you give them everything about the engine and everything about the process of starting the car. in this car is this way, and in this car is that way. And you give them all the information in about 15 minutes or 20 minutes. And you're just going through delivering the information that you think they asked for. And you're not paying attention to anything else, not the environment, not other people, not anything else at the time. You are going through the process of delivering the information that you want to deliver. And it just came in a few seconds. Like they gave you the signal, they asked you the question, and boom, you went to town on delivering that information. Now, don't feel bad if you overshare. It's going to happen. It happens a lot. It happens all the time. And it's just one thing, one part of ADHD. And sometimes people that don't have ADHD still overshare. And you may just realize that you're doing it. You may get into the process of oversharing and then realize, whoa, I just gave a lot of information and I know that they only wanted to hear about this. And it is something that you have to practice to say, okay, I'm aware that I'm oversharing and maybe I should stop. Or maybe you should say something like this. Hey, I give you all that information. Do you want me to continue, or is that enough information for you? And that should be good enough. Unless they ask you for additional information, or they ask you, then go ahead, share it as much as you want to, but don't switch subjects. That may be another thing that you do. You may switch subjects in the middle of giving them the information and switch it and go and say, okay, hey, that's good. And I've got through that, but now let's go on to this. And so now you're delivering information on something else completely. And that does happen. You may just go off on a tangent. I probably shouldn't have gone off on that tangent. I realize that now. Another disadvantage is going to be that when you have ADHD, you're an outside the box thinker generally. And you live inside the box kind of world. Like the world is really like, hey, we are inside this box and you have to follow these rules, and these are the rules, and don't veer off to any other way except the way that we've done it before, because that is the way that is correct. And hey, we just don't want to change at all. But then someone comes along that thinks outside the box and innovates, and they make a lot of money because they've come up with an invention that people say, wow, if only I could have thought about that. But a lot of people are in this inside the box thinking. They will just not think outside the box. They'll just say, hey, I'm good. This is how we did it before. This is how I'm going to do it in the future. And this is how I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm never going to think outside the box. And because we are outside the box thinkers, it's only a disadvantage because of the world we live in. Because a lot of times we're going to give outside the box answers. We're going to say, hey, this would be a really cool thing to do. And the person might be, hey, that's a good idea, but this is the way we've always done it. So do it this way instead. And so that's a disadvantage, basically. That is something that you're like, man, if I could just have an outside the box kind of job or a thing that I do instead of being this inside the box kind of world, then I would be able to do so much more. And that may be why a lot of people with ADHD are entrepreneurs, because then you have outside the box freedom, right? You can just be outside the box as much as you want. But if you have a job and you're going to a job and you have an outside the box mind and you're thinking about those kind of things, but at the job, they say, nope, this is the exact way you're supposed to do it. You do it this way. You don't do it any other way. And so that can be a problem because you are off thinking about outside the box ideas. And you might be thinking of the best outside the box idea that you've ever come up with. Like, it's amazing. It's the awesome idea. Problem with that is we live inside the box kind of world. And so it's a detriment in this case. But if you didn't live in this kind of world, then it might be the best advantage ever. You may or may not see it as an advantage or disadvantage. Sometimes outside the box thinking is a complete advantage. And I think it is. And I think it's awesome when you can think outside the box and have all these creative ideas. Just think about that. Think about that. If you're an outside the box thinker, how much more of an advantage it would be if outside the box thinking was really valued more highly. But if you can find a place to do your outside the box thinking, that people just are like, yes, let's do this. Let's be different. Let's do it this way. Let's not do it the way that this person did it or that it's been done in the past. Let's do something new. And looking at one last thing that I want to go over is going to be impulsivity. You might be so impulsive that you take too many risks. And impulsivity, I think, is a good thing when you are doing it in the correct way, when you are impulsive about the right things. But if you are impulsive about the wrong things, it can be very, very bad. For example, shopping, and you are just like, hey, I'm going to go shopping, and you see so many interesting things and you just start going on a buying spree. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy that. And wow, I just sounded like an auctioneer right there. Bid higher, bid higher, bid higher, and just keep going. Then at the end of the month, or the end of 2 months or 3 months or whatever it is, you look back at your bills, you look back at your bank account, you realize you spent a lot of money on stuff you didn't need. Now, I'm not going to give financial advice. Matter of fact, I can't give financial advice. But the thing I'm going to say is this. You have to think about what you're doing when you are in that impulsive mode. You know, when you are in the mode of saying, hey, I'm going to do something super impulsive right now, and I have to go, I have to be able to go right now. And I don't care about the consequences because that thing over there is really interesting, or I really want that something, or I really want to be in that place, and I'm going to do it and not even think about it. And that can be bad, and it can be good in some situations, because curiosity might be good, right? It's a good thing to be curious and then be impulsive in that way and just try to dive in and figure things out. But if you are so impulsive that you are taking too many risks, that you are doing things that are risky and that maybe you should be advised against doing. If you are maybe a person who decides that you are just going to try all the extreme sports. Now, you've never done extreme sports at all. You know, you have to go and do them, and you just become what they call like an adrenaline junkie. And that's fine to do extreme sports and all that kind of stuff. But if you're just doing them because you're so impulsive, and not really because you're interested in and want to learn the correct way to do them, then that can be a bad thing. Impulsivity can be good in some cases, but in this case, in the case that I'm talking about, you can be too impulsive, and that can lead to bad situations. And so you want to think about that. It's a disadvantage when you have fast thinking mind, because it does lend you to be impulsive about a lot of things, but you just need to watch what you're doing when you have this impulsive thought. Do you really need to do the thing that you're doing or whatever that you're thinking about being impulsive about? Or should you just stop for a second and not do that thing? Thank you for watching this episode or listening to this episode of the Rewire Fitness Podcast. If you're on YouTube or a podcast app, go and click the subscribe button for me. And if you're on YouTube, ring the notification bell, as well as leave a like and a comment. And just a reminder, if you're on YouTube, you can listen to all episodes on any digital platform. Thank you again, and have a great day.